couple of new provisions relating to your retirement were included in the Secure Act 2.0, and we're going to share those with you, but we're going to share those along with a conversation about some of the main secrets that you don't hear when folks talk about a tax-free retirement. All too often you hear the ads, don't you want a tax-free retirement? Well, of course, everybody would want a tax-free retirement. But there's a couple of secrets that are lurking in the background that may give you pause before you jump into all of that marketing hype. So we're going to talk about those here on this segment of the program here on Dollars and Cents. I'm Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary with Nelson Financial Planning, where we got a whole team of certified financial fiduciaries that stand ready to help you change your life with a successful and cost-effective financial plan. So what better time than the start of a year to say, hey, you know what? Maybe a second opinion, a second look at what I'm currently doing might make some sense. Well, guess what? We're happy to do that for you, and we do that at no charge because all of our consultations and conversations with folks are done without any charge. You can always come in for a conversation at any point in time. So the Secure Act 2.0, gotta love the wording, if you will, that the folks in Washington come up with on these bills, right? So SECURE stands for Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement. That's a mouthful, but that is the marketing that happens up in Washington. So here's two changes for 2023. And this is an important development, and we wanted to kind of share with you. And what we've seen is that on the traditional employer side of things, typically the way in which you can save for retirement is often, or almost exclusively, on the pre-tax side of things. So the pre-tax side of things is the way that is the option pretty much you've always kind of had. But starting this year, 2023, employers now have the option to allow employees to decide whether to take employer matching and non-elective contributions on a Roth or after-tax basis. The employer may deduct the Roth contributions, but the employees that take the Roth contributions obviously would take them as income, and then the contributions and earnings thereafter would be subject to normal Roth rules as well. For tax years also beginning after 2022, so that'd be 2023 and going forward, that same feature is available on Simples, and it's also available on SEP IRA. So employers now able to offer the Roth piece on their contributions on the Simple plans and also on the SEP plans as well. So what the Secure Act did is it obviously expanded a tremendous amount of opportunities for folks to be doing Roth contributions as it relates to their retirement. And what is interesting about that is, well, I guess you have to think about the logic as to why the folks in Washington would do that. The reality is that, remember, when you do a Roth, that's after tax money. So that means that the folks in Washington are getting the tax revenue on that money now rather than later. One of the things that's so frustrating to folks in Washington is you got all this money in IRAs, retirement accounts. It hasn't been taxed. We need to tax that money. That money's been sitting there growing tax deferred, and we got to figure out a way to tax that money. So let's just make sure that we try to encourage everybody to do the Roth instead. Now, you may think, well, Joel, I didn't realize you were that big of a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm just understand the numbers and how it works. Money coming in, that's what Washington wants right now. Money later, those guys don't think about the future all that much. So just be aware of what the logic is behind the Roth up in Washington, and that may make you think a couple of different things on the Roth versus the traditional. There's also a couple of secrets when we talk about that, because when we think of the Roth, it's certainly a very valuable option. I don't want to, paint it in a dark corner here. Roth is a great option for folks that are younger, right? The reality is that if you're in your 50s, like myself, there wasn't really a Roth option, right? I mean, they just introduced it this year, 2023, for employer contributions for SEPs and Simples. So it's not a concept that was generally available to us in our early years of working. But if you are in your early years of working, there's certainly some appeal to sort of think about using that. But the problem is, though, as you get older and as you get further along, if you're in your 50s, chances are you should be sort of in your peak earning years, right? I mean, isn't that kind of how it goes? Hopefully you're not making the same today if you're in your 50s than you did when you were just starting out in the workforce when you were in your 20s. So that's part of the secrets that folks don't talk about when they talk about, hey, let's have a tax-free retirement, because there's two main dirty little secrets that folks don't really appreciate. And the first of which is, in order to get a tax-free retirement and you got all this pre-tax money, what do you got to do? Well, you got to do a conversion. And when you do that, that means that you are paying taxes now at whatever your highest marginal tax rate is. Okay, well, back to the fact that if I'm still working and in my 50s, chances are should be pretty close to my peak earning years. So that means that you're going to be paying taxes at a relatively high rate. Now, of course, you should run the numbers and run the analysis on it. If you're below and in the 12% bracket, or maybe you're in the 22% bracket, there may be an opportunity to take a portion and fill up those brackets. But again, if you're a married couple making decent money, you do a conversion, it's going to cost you 24 or maybe 32%. That seems to me pretty pricey in our opinion. Number two, and this is the other part of the dirty little secret, well, if you did the conversion, you got to pay taxes, right? And the IRS, they don't take credit, or when they do, they charge you 7%. And so consequently, this is the one that you've got to be sort of careful with, because the money then has to come from somewhere, right? Okay, I converted. Okay, now I got to pay the taxes. Where is that money coming from, number one? And what's the opportunity cost on that money? What if I took that money and invested it? What if I took that money and did something with it that further increased my overall investment picture? And oh, by the way, that money is going to be after-tax money, because after-tax money is what you have to use to pay the taxes. So if I'm doing that, then if I invested that money would be invested outside of a retirement sort of envelope in the first place and subject to lower taxes anyway. So consider the tax bill, if you will, and where on earth that money is ultimately going to come from. And those are really the two big dirty secrets, right? Tax-free retirement sounds great, except I got to do a conversion. And when I do a conversion, I got to pay the taxes. And when I pay the taxes, that involves money. That involves sending money out of your pocket to the IRS. If you're in your 50s and 60s, chances are you're in your peak earning years. So be very careful on the analysis that simply says, don't you want a tax-free retirement? In addition, if you're on the lower end, the thing you have to watch out for is that if you're retired collecting Social Security and someone says, you're in a low tax bracket, you should totally do this. Be careful, because you may find that you're more and more of your Social Security, because see, when you convert, that's income and that's retirement income. And ultimately then that could trigger more and more of your Social Security to then be taxable, thereby doubling up the amount of tax that you pay for the conversion. If you're in your 20s and 30s, okay, fine. There's a stronger argument for you to do the Roth over the traditional, because income taxes are lower now, particularly between now and 2026, and you're younger and making less money. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to finish up this conversation about the dirty secrets about converting to a Roth, and then continue on with the conversation here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning.